Hey folks, welcome to Metal Mill 52 Workshop. If you've not been here before, I appreciate you stopping by. In this week's episode, we'll be talking about making new tabletops or bench tops or vice jaws, depending on what you want to call them, for the Black Decker Workmate workbench. This is a very handy utilitarian item. It was designed by a gentleman named Ron Hickman. It's a really cool design, and he's a great designer. I really appreciate what he did. I have two of these that I bought, both of them used off of Craigslist. This one had those very old, decrepit, non-standard tops on it, and I've been meaning for the longest time to replace them. So if you'll stick with me for the next 20-25 minutes, I'll show you how I made this nice set of replacement tops, and I hope you enjoy this. If you do, please give me a thumbs up. If you have a question, ask me a question. I enjoy answering the questions when I can. And please follow along. Please subscribe, like, and all that stuff, because I am trying to grow my channel. My name is Bill, and this is Metal Mill 52 Workshop. Thanks again for being part of it. Since I finished a couple of big projects, I decided it'd be a good time to tackle a small but important project that I've been wanting to do for a long time. What you're looking at is an original style Black Decker Workmate. I believe this was made in the 1980s. And it has the H-frame construction, the cast aluminum, very cool looking. And if you're not familiar with these things, there's a ton of information about these on the internet. This is a particularly rough example which I obtained off of Craigslist probably 5 years ago, and the legs that you see down here were actually not included. The original ones were either removed or busted off, and happily there is a person on eBay that sells these replacement parts at a reasonable price, so I was able to obtain a new set. And those legs fold just like the entire Workmate folds, and as you can see, the one thing, well, it could use a cleaning and a painting, but I'm not going to mess with the paint right now because I actually do use this thing a lot. And obviously what does need some repair is the plywood top, because that clearly is not the original. It's not the original pattern, and it's not in good shape, and it was quite poorly secured on here when I got it. I've stiffened it up a little bit, bolted it down, but it's still pretty rickety. So I'm looking forward to getting that fixed up. What I normally do is put a large sheet of aluminum or plywood on top of there, so I have a bigger flat surface to work with. That's what I was using the videos that I was doing the corn, if you look in the background of those. But nonetheless, the Workmate is a fantastic addition to any workshop, in my opinion. You can fold it up. I collapse it up and fold it over in the corner when it's not needed, and I have this extra floor space. But when I am working on small fiddly projects where I'd like to sit down in a chair, it makes a fantastic little work surface. So I found plans that are appear to be faithful reproductions. A gentleman named Carl Liebold had taken the time to draw the plans out. I'm sure if you Google this, you can find them. And I was at Home Depot a week or so ago and found a nice piece of plywood. I'll show you that in a minute, but it's suitable for this purpose. So without any further ado, my plan, I've already sketched out my work. I measured the old boards, and I decided to make mine just a little bit longer than Carl's plans call for. I'm going to shoot for about 29¼ inches long and about 5½ inches wide, so on the top of them. Then there's a narrow strip that goes underneath that'll be glued and screwed in place. And the whole pattern, I'm not quite sure about that too. I'm going to get the boards cut out, and I'll route the edges, soften them like they're called for. And according to Carl's plans, the originals actually had a notch, either dadoed or cut with a router in there that's 1/4 inch deep. All the other edges are 1/8 inch, so be easy enough to use a router or a shaper bit to cut that out. So that's kind of my plan. Do that, put the pieces together, test fit them, and then we'll see about the bolt holes, because he does, not the bolt holes, but the work holding bench dog type things. He's got a layout here on his plans, but I'm not sure I'm going to echo that exactly or not. So let's go cut some wood. Okay, the next step, now that I've got my dimensions in mind, I'm gonna cross cut this piece of stock, and I'll have a 29 1/4 inch long piece to work from. Then I can do the rips for the various sizes that I need for the halves of the table replacement pieces. So the first cut I'm going to do, I've laid out my line here, and the first cut I'm going to do using the cross cut or the circular saw, because it's just a lot easier that way to run the saw across it. And then I can use my Shopsmith here to do the ripping. And I want to show this wood here. This is a piece of 3/4 inch BCX plywood that I got at Home Depot. I had to go through about half the stack to find a piece that's nice. If you see, it's almost A grade. The BC means B quality on one side, it's C on the other, which will be the bottom side obviously. And then the X means exterior grade glue. So it should hold up really well in the workshop environment as a piece of basically tabletop material. So happy about that. That's why I got the BCX. And as you can see, I've laid out my initial line. That's 39 1/2 inches. This is a 4 foot by 3 foot piece. So I'm going to have a nice piece left over that will be handy for other projects. Alright, so I got all the material cut. I actually cut, just to be to see if I like it better, I cut one of the new top pieces at 5 1/2 inch. The other two are 5 inches, and these pieces are 1 3/8, so it'll be the bottom front piece. So I thought I'd make a comment here about Shopsmiths. Not a paid shill for them or anything, but this is the third one I've owned. I actually still have the other two. One is an old Model 10 ER that I converted to a milling machine, and that's kind of what gave me the idea to use the name Metal Mill for my channel. The second one I bought brand new in the 1980s, and it is in pristine condition, but I don't have it here in this garage. What I wanted, and why you're looking at this rusty one here, is just kind of a pointer for you. If you're looking for something, I actually found this on Craigslist, and I was looking for a Shopsmith bandsaw, which the bandsaws alone, I think new, they're probably $500 or something, or at least $3. This machine had a bandsaw attached to it, and the whole thing was on sale. I think the guy wanted $500 originally, but I could see how rusty it was, and believe it or not, I've cleaned this up some since I bought it, but it was in completely rusty, nasty condition. You can see that it's actually a lot smoother than it looks, but it's just horribly pitted there. And so I went and looked at it, but the bandsaw was actually right there. And I looked at the bandsaw, and it was all together there. So I offered the guy $300 for the whole machine, and he said yes. So I took it apart. They're easy to transport if you've got a decent-sized vehicle like station wagon or SUV. You undo these screws here, and these legs basically just unbolt completely. So the only thing you're transporting is from that surface on up. So you don't need a lot of vertical height. You need basically like a 6 foot long by 1.5 foot high by about 2 feet wide space. So you could slip it in the back of a station wagon, back of a pickup truck, that kind of thing. So I got this one, got the bandsaw that I wanted, and I essentially got this extra Shopsmith basically for free. And it doesn't cut really great. I have to run the motor faster. It's old and beat up, as you can tell, but I mean, it gets the job done. You can see that I need to put a new blade on it because it kind of burned this plywood a little bit. But heck, pretty cool. If you look around, you can get bargains. That's my only point there. So I'm gonna put this all away right now. I may come back and use this to drill the holes, but first I need to do the routing and figure out the sizes and what I want to use. So I'll take you to the next step there. Got my pieces cut and marked for how they're going to go. For the time being, I'm going to start with my 5 1/2 inch wide piece in the back there, and I do have the spare, the 5 inch wide one over there I can use. but I've marked them for where they marry up. I used a little triangle to keep me oriented. I wrote top, middle, and bottom for the parts, so I know which is which. And initially in the router, where did I put the router? Here it is. I've got the bevel cutter. I've got a brand new bevel cutter, and I've got it set down at the 1/8 inch level. Let me see if I can show you. I don't know how this is going to video, but see about an 1/8 inch of the 1/4 inch or the 45-degree bevel sticking out. That's what I'm going to use to put a little bevel on all of the top edges of the pieces. So I'll be doing that in just a minute here. And what I think I'm going to do, since it's not raining outside, I might set the pieces up in here and then carry it outside there, so I won't get sawdust flying all over my shop. I'll show you that in a second as soon as I get it ready to go. So here's my setup outside. The Workmate's holding the router securely. You can turn it on this way. I'm not going to turn the whole thing, but do the long passes first, and then the two edges. So here's a handy feature. I should have talked more about this when I've had this router since at least the 1980s, maybe 1985, something like that, and it's basic, but it does a great job. And when I had set the initial depth, I had marked the index ring there to 0, and so all I had to do to go the extra 1/8 of an inch was rotate the index ring to an 1/8, and then scoot the body, loosen the clamp up here, scoot the body down on the motor portion, and now I've got a 1/4 inch bevel basically, so it'll be all set up for the inside jaws, so to speak. Okay, and here's the one with the 1/4 inch cut in it. So this will be the jaw. This is my spare top that I'm making. I figured I'd go ahead and get all the machining done, so I'll have a good spare just in case. But there's the 1/4 inch compared to the 1/8 inch bevels there. Alright, well that part is complete. This is what it looks like. So you have the nice notch for pipe holding or holding round objects in the Workmate. So that'll get glued and screwed together. So now I'm going to take this over and put in a tiny round over bit, because what I'm thinking is once I drill my holes, I might want to use the round over in there. Hey, not to convert this into a woodworking channel, but I did do woodworking as a hobby for like 20 years before I ever got into metalworking, and this is one of my favorite tools that I ever used to use. It's a real simple tool. They call it a marking gauge, and I've had this one, gee whiz, 30 odd years. It's a nice maple. It's got a little brass insert, but it has a tooth here that you can just set the distance that you want to offset your mark. So in this case, I set it for 3/4 of an inch to mark the inner lines where we're going to drill the holes for the pegs. So this is the process. Yeah, you can see that. So you just drag the tooth across the wood, and it makes a nice line. It scratches a line basically. Let's do that over on this side too. So I'm setting it. I did the back one at, what is it, an inch and an 1/8, I guess. Do the front one at 3/4. Describes this nice neat little line, and you can just use your tape measure, nothing fancy, and set off, mark where your holes are. So that's what I've done so far. The 5 holes in the back, those little ink marks you see. So now I just take the tape measure and mark off the ones for the front. Alright, I've got all my holes laid out. My game plan is, I was debating 2 options. One would be to go ahead and glue the 2 pieces together now and then drill the holes through them all at once. That's a thought. But I'm kind of thinking what I'd like to do is to take these apart, or take these separately rather, and I'll just use, I've got a good Frood brand 3/4 inch Forstner bit, and I think I'll go ahead and take this into the Shopsmith in the house garage and drill all these holes on it, and then do the glue up tonight. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so I've got one of them glued, and I put a few brads in it with a little air brad nailer that I have, and I've got some small clamps on it just holding it in place. I'll put some better, sturdier clamps on, but I thought I'd shoot a video here before I do this one. So here's the 45 angle there. Holes line up pretty good. I'll probably, after these are all glued and set, I'll just run the drill down through it, the Forstner bit. As you can see, it gave me a beautiful clean hole, so I can use that to just, if there's any part that doesn't match up perfectly, I can run it through if I need to. So the game plan is now I've applied the glue, I'll put the halves together, I'll put it together with small clamps and then brads and then some bigger clamps, and we'll let it set overnight. Okay, I've got both of them inside the shop here. I just took them outside and used my little sander there to run over them with 100 grit, just kind of knock off anything, and put it in the Workmate so that I could go make sure I got rid of any glue residue that was in this part right here. So just run it over it real gently, get it ready for not primer, but the first coat of polyurethane. Hey everybody, so I have the first coat of primer, I keep saying primer, sorry about that, of polyurethane. This is the water-based polyurethane, and I really like this stuff. It holds up better than you might think if you've never tried it before. I'll show you the brand in a minute. I got this at the Home Depot, and I was shocked at how much the cost has increased. A little quart can like this used to be, say, like $10. Now it's $19. So I guess that has something to do with all the what's going on in the world these days. But I'm putting a thin coat on all of the exposed edges. Let it soak in really good on the sides there. Actually, more of a thicker coat, I guess I should say. The stuff kind of goes on milky. Looks like a milky white. I don't know if the camera will pick that up or not. But I'm doing the bottoms first so I can let that set for an hour, and I'll flip it over and do the tops. And then let that dry overnight, sand it tomorrow, and repeat. I'll do about 3 coats and then wait a good probably 3 days. So I just went through. It probably would have been better to glue the bottom section on first and then just drill the holes, but anyway, because there was a teeny bit of misalignment, but as you can see, I've fixed that pretty easily. I've got those Frood, if that's how you say it, brand Forstner bits are fantastic. That's an old bit. I've used it a bunch, and it's still as sharp as the day I bought it. So I had this set up here. I just went through and cut out fixed any of the misalignment, just ran through the holes. What I'd do was set the piece underneath. I have this blocked up so it's the right height, and then try to show this one-handed, but I get it lined up. I actually start the Forstner bit in the hole like that, so it's all secure, and then turn it on, and then finish all the way down to the bottom. So that's the easy way to resolve the misalignment thing. And again, a nice thing about working with wood. So these things are basically all done, and all I need to do is to sand them. I might soften these edges. I'm not sure about that. One of the videos I watched on YouTube, the guy used a little round over bit on the outside of the circles. Maybe I'll just chamfer that by hand. I'm not sure yet. But anyway, sand them a little bit and finish the edges, and then put some polyurethane on it. We'll be good to go. Okay, just to document the project progress, this is Monday night. The boards are dried, and I just sanded them down with some 220, sanded them by hand with some 220 grit sandpaper, and they're nice and smooth now. You know, I did 100 grit before I put the first coat of polyurethane on there. So 200 grit, and then I wiped them down with a tack rag to get the dust off. So I'll go ahead and put the second coat on now, and we will see how it goes. Okay, Tuesday night, and third coat has gone on. I sanded again with the 220 grit, and it's drying now. I'll let it set up about a half hour or more. On this side, it's cooler than it has been, so maybe it'll take a little bit longer to dry. I say cooler, it's in the 80s, not the 90s. So I'll let this set, then flip it over and paint the other side with the third coat. Hey folks, I'm almost done with the new jaws for the Workmate workbench. Now remember, there's one more thing, this little notch that I'm showing here, 1/4 inch deep, 5/8 inch wide, and 6 9/16 inches in from the end. So I marked it out, and I created this little bit of a jig here. I've got it securely held. I've got some pieces of scrap to give it the proper width, and I'm holding it in the old jaws of the Workmate. I've got several clamps holding the pieces in place, and then I offset the center from the center of my router to the edge is 3 inches. So I offset this little aluminum tube 3 inches, and there's not any pressure that it's going to go under. I'm going to just make one more pass. This is the first pass. That's about 1/8 of an inch deep. So I'll make another pass full depth and I'll be done. So I just set the V cutter to the full depth, you can see here, and made the second pass, got it nice and straight, nice deep V groove. So now I can unclamp everything, and I'll run a little sandpaper on that, put a coat of polyurethane in the little groove that I just made, and it should be ready to assemble tomorrow. Took off the old decrepit vice jaws, tabletops, whatever you want to call them. I thought I'd shoot a quick video of what the brackets look like. The front ones don't wobble, but the back ones do. That allows the tables to flex. And these are the holes that put the screws through. Hey, it's Saturday morning now. It's easier to work with a little daylight. I'm about to put in the screws to hold on the inside screws to hold on the new workbench and tabletop. So I'm pre-drilling with I've already pre-drilled these 2 holes with a 5/64 inch drill, and I put a piece of tape there so that I won't go too far, and I don't want to go through the top. So now I'm just using my little battery operated driver. It's really handy to have an extension because the angle is a little wonky here. So I'll just put this one in and cut it off, and there we go. Get the other one. What I'm using, the screws I'm using are these. They're called Techs. I've used these for projects like this before. Really cool stuff. These are number 8 by 3/4 inches, you can see. And they have a very large flat head. So it's going to be perfect, kind of on like a built-in washer. Perfect for this application. Like I said, it is really handy to have a longer reach thing for your drill. Alright, just gotta get 2 more done, then we're done.